Hi, and welcome to Main Street AI, the podcast where traditional businesses are quietly revolutionizing their operations with artificial intelligence and winning. In this podcast, I sit down with industry leaders from law firms and professional services and other Main Street businesses to explore their AI journey. We dive into the opportunities they see, the challenges they're navigating, and the real impact of AI on their industries. Whether you're AI curious or ready to implement, this show brings you insights from leaders who are actually using this technology to serve customers better, empower employees, and drive profitable growth. What does it look like when a patent attorney also thinks like a venture investor, a startup strategist, and a technologist all at once? Bao Tran of PatentPC has spent the last 30 years at the intersection of all four. He architected the patent portfolio for Invisalign when they were a two-man company, helped build the AI-powered legal tech platform PowerPatent, and is currently advising a veterinarian AI startup while running a boutique patent firm and a small venture fund. In this episode, Bao makes one of the sharpest cases you'll hear for why most companies are patenting the wrong things, why half of university patents may be essentially worthless, and why AI doesn't threaten patent lawyers, it elevates them. This one goes deep fast, and it's worth every minute. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to the Main Street AI podcast. This is Stephen Whittier with Satori Coach IO, and today, really interesting conversation. I'm joined by Bao Tran of PatentPC. Bao, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Stephen, for inviting me on board. This is an exciting topic, and I'm glad to contribute what I can.
Fantastic. And we were just chatting a little bit before going live here on your multifaceted approach to what you do. You've got your hand in a few different levels of the game. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and those different entities?
Sure. I was lucky early in life to study technology, and then went to Columbia for the MBA. And then my mother had a stroke, so I went back and I took care of her, and I added a law degree. So anyway, when I came out, patent law was not something that I thought in mind, but a big firm called Fish Richardson took me in, and then they moved me to California, Silicon Valley, and I work with big companies as well as startups. And one of those startups happens to be the precursor to the Align technology, which makes the Invisalign product these days. So they were my client, and then when they raised big funding, they pulled me in as associate general counsel. And I saw how patent could be used to protect the IP for startups, and doing it in a way that increases the company valuation. So I learned a lot from that experience. In about 5 years, I jumped off and I started helping other startup companies because I'm kind of dyslexic. I really want to be involved with a lot of different technologies instead of just one. So over time, we built a platform to help organize the IP portfolio of the startup company. And then when COVID hit in 2000, I think it's 22, something like that, we had a lot of time on our hand, and I decided to play with GPT source code at that time. So we had these racks of GPU servers that was running specific to IP development for companies. And then GPT-3, GPT-4 came along, and we saw that those models were better at generating outcome the text that you want. For example, in building a patent application or in responding to rejection from the patent office. So we morphed our model to include both our own custom version as well as the GPT-5. And we've been using that to help a lot of startups to build their portfolio very cost effectively and focused. And we're different from a normal lawyer who, you hand over the technology and you expect the lawyer to work on it for a week, and then they'll come back and then you kind of prove it for accuracy, and then you check it out. What we do more, because we rely a lot on AI, is we interact with the claims of a patent early on enough that we can maximize the scope of your protection. Because we'll say, hey, if this is the scope we're claiming, look and see where else it could be used. Look to see who are the closest people who might need this technology. And so we do that at the front end, not at the back end. Many companies, what they do is they just rely on the lawyers being the legal experts, right? Mm-hmm. And you send your application, and you kind of more or less accepted their view of the world. But that view of the world, in some sense, is they're masked. They don't actually go out and look for people who infringe. They're focused on your particular technology. And because of that, they're blindsided. They're focused on what you're focused, and you two are now kind of operating in sync, and so you don't see where the value of your technology is, right? And to give you an example of how this worked, when I did it in person, not AI, 20 years ago, Invisalign, and Stephen, you are currently an Invisalign users, right? So what you did was you came to your dentist, they did an intraoral scan of your teeth, and then they digitize it into a computer model, and then they move it using a computer, and then they fabricate the retainers that you would wear stage by stage, right? So what are technologies involved with that? Number one, intraoral scanning, or back at the time when we did it 20 years ago, we did a cast of your teeth, and then we did a 3D scanning of the cast. Number two is then you create that into a dental CAD model. So there's CAD technology there. Number three is once you have the CAD model of the teeth, you have to have a treatment plan, right? So that's called planning. And then number four is you have to fabricate that as a 3D printed device, right? And then number five is then you finalize your pack and you ship. And part of that shipping is you have to insert the proper number or the sequence onto each retainer. So the inventors back then was focused on scanning technology. They were focused on the CAD technology. They were focused on how you move your teeth so that it within the biomechanics of the dental system. And then they were focusing on how to produce that thing using 3D. Back then we were using SLA technology, right? So all of that is nice, and they're all very fancy technology, but have you taken a technical look at that particular technology, you would have missed out on the big picture. So I looked at it and I said, well, you know what? All of this, people could replicate. They can do, instead of 3D printing, they can just fabricate a single model and they move it around, and then you slam plastics on top of that. So you don't need 3D printers. Intraoral scanning, you can use quite a few number of other technologies to do scanning, right? So what's the one thing that would block, if they can do design around on everything, what's the one thing that's the bridge that you need to mine? So I devised a set of patent that says, hey, you cannot have more than 3 retainers that are sequenced, for treatment, dental treatment, with an indicia of indication, an indicia of wearing sequence, right? That simple concept really kept the industry at bay for 20 years. They have tried everything else except they couldn't get around the fact that they can't sell you a sequence set of aligners, with sequence indication. So that's an insight as to how a lawyer adds value to the business. The normal lawyers would just look at your technology and they'll fall in love with your technology and they'll document your technology. But the really strategic one think about how that is used to increase your company valuation and increase the protection for your business, for your go-to-market model. And so that's what I mean. And so we translated that kind of experience into an AI. So now in the power patent system, when you write a set of claim, it'll try to find potential companies that might need this technology. And so it will give you insight. It's a co-pilot that will give you the user insights on how to increase the value of the business. So that's what I mean, because when we as lawyers, patent lawyers, think outside the box, and that experience really kind of ties backward into my journey through the past 20 years, weaving in technology, patent strategy, and startup kind of deep understanding of the startup requirements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's why this is so interesting. You've been deep on both ends of the spectrum, and then you use the term strategic, which is it's creative, it's strategic. That was exactly what I was thinking, and proactive. So with that, I'm sure that you see from your lens some mistakes that corporations, companies will make as they try and roll out new technology. What would be your your concise advice to them about not just going down sort of a traditional route, but really making sure that they are engaging in a way that's going to be able to protect their IP?
I've worked with a range of industries. I work with a traditional med tech, and they are very heavy in patenting, right? And then you work with about 5 years ago, blockchain and crypto was very popular. And most of those founders, they came from an ethos of open source, and they don't protect themselves. And that to me is a mistake. Open source and patenting can coexist. You can give away your source code, but you need to protect your business model, right? So, and as things evolve, then you got into the AI space. And in the AI space, you'll find a mixture of people that are patent savvy, and then you'll see some people that are open source. And again, some of that interaction between the blockchain technologies versus the open source AI technology, you can see similarity. My view of it is that they're not incompatible. You should patent as soon as you can to protect your particular core business model. That doesn't prevent you from open sourcing your code out. Let's say your LLM, like in the way of Meta. Look at Meta, how they did it. They open source the entire Llama system, but they say if you go use it beyond a certain level, you need to come to us for a license, right? And so that may be one good way of approaching the open source dilemma that a lot of programmers they like to do. So I think we should have some IP protection that protects the business. And also in these days and age where the LLMs kind of absorb everything that you put out on the internet, you need to have some hooks into there to protect the work product that you've done that ultimately maybe an LLM can just absorb for free on the internet, right? So I think the first mistake that a lot of companies do is they say, we're going to open source it, we're not going to patent. That I think is I think you can do both. You can protect your business and still serve the open source.
Great.
Second thing, a mistake that they do is they don't think about what they patent. Once you get to cross that bridge, right? They just said, here's this raw technology. Just throw it to the lawyers and let them do the work, and let's see if they get some patent out of it. They don't manage the strategy of what you patent and why is it that you're patenting. Now, each of these patents over the life of it will cost you around $50,000 because you got lawyer fee, you got government filing fees, you got maintenance fees, various things. So you can look up on the internet, but it's roughly estimated to be around $50,000 per patent, right? You can trim it if you negotiate wisely, for example. But let's say even at $25,000 per patent, right? You want those things to increase your company value, and you want your customers. You want to protect the customer base. Now the problem is that if you just blindly release it out to a lawyer and then hope and pray that lawyer predicted your proper business protection, I would counsel you not to do that. I would counsel you to be more actively be involved in interacting with outside counsel in figuring out, number one, how do I protect my own business and model? And number two, how do I expand the value of this patent by thinking about other industries that could utilize this technology, right? So I spoke at the Association of University Technology Management conference a couple of days ago in Seattle, and I kind of made a bold statement, which I think shocked the industry, shocked the university tech manager, the tech transfer offices. Right? I told them, "I'll bet you half of your patents are worthless," and that's kind of like they look around. And, yeah, what do you mean by that? I says, "Well, yeah, they're enforceable certainly, but nobody infringes them." You're patenting all this stuff that the professors, they just do in their lab, and they're focusing on solving a very narrow segment, right? And then you just take that technology and you send it out to outside counsel, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to just focus on what the professor was thinking of. You need to think outside the box What I heard at the conference was that the current administration was killing the universities because they're removing, they're threatening support funds and they're threatening to take back the patents and this and that. So the universities are now leaning on the tech transfer community to generate more money to support the universities. Now those patents are a real asset that you got to squeeze money out of. And when you go and you try to squeeze it, the patent covers something that nobody else is using. And so I think I kind of maybe shocked them a little bit, but afterward I got tons of emails from the attendees saying, "Hey, you touch on a sensitive nerve, and it's a very good discussion. That's something that we need to face." So I felt kind of a little bit bad walking out of that conference that I didn't say the rah rah, you're doing great things, but I think I was speaking to the elephant in the room. You're paying a lot of money. You need to make sure that that money is productive. Your venture investors are putting in $1 and they're expecting $10 back. You need to look at your patent investment with the same lens.
Absolutely. That's fantastic advice. Speaking of the AI, right? So as we delve into that a little bit, one thing I noticed that makes you unique, typically when I'm talking to attorneys, I'll ask them about what are their thoughts on where AI is trending in the industry right now. I'll ask them, how are you using it personally, if you're using it personally. What's unique about you is I'd still like to think how you're using it internally for your business, but what's interesting is you've actually created AI tools for patenting and IP that you have for your clients. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. We're very lucky that I have a talented team of developers that work with me because, I've always been a software person. And so I love the technology. So back 10, 15 years ago, we started having a system that collects invention disclosures for internal use. And then when we saw the age of GPT, the big LLM came, we started adapting that into our system generally. So we were one of the very first people in the legal tech space. And of course we patented that concept, the use of that into legal tech generation. And we use it internally, and a lot of the startups that we were supporting, they were saying, this thing is pretty good on its own, but why don't we just, decouple it from being so tied to your law firm, your internal use. So that was the genesis of Power Patent, the software spin-off. And we, it's always been internally funded, so we're not at the average of the venture investing model. I saw that I think last month, two companies in this space each raised about a total of $50 million from venture in their series, I think A or B. So that implies that the company valuation is probably somewhere around 100 million. So I told, in my mind, I said, hey, that's pretty nice. Something that we've been doing, evolving over the 10-year period now is we're in comparable range as those big guys, but we're not spending as much money on the marketing. We're just focusing on developing great tools that I could use and other lawyers could use to improve their workflow. So the beauty of the AI is that it has a bigger picture than you because it has all the internet information in it, right? Then we augment that with patent-specific information by using RAG technology, where it basically it customized. The prompt is the LLM is customized to your particular use case. But nonetheless, the tool is a co-pilot. It requires the lawyer to think through what the implications of the work product will be like. But the beauty of it is that it makes that process of thinking through a lot easier. 10 years ago, or actually, I think 20 years ago, when I was at Invisalign, we spent a week doing these landscape charts, right? Where we say, okay, here's this one dental company, a traditional dental company, and here are their patents. Here's another traditional dental company. They're not in the the Invisalign space, but they make, let's say, braces, for example. And here are their patents. And then we try to, create a landscape map. And that process was very, very labor intensive because you have to look at each pattern. You have to determine where they are plotted onto the chart. Um, and it was painful exercise. And now the AI, with the proper prompting techniques, they do a lot of that work. And you can do that in a matter of a day. So AI is a fantastic tool, but you need to use it correctly and you need to think through about it. So the funny thing was at the conference I was on Monday, there was a couple of lawyers in the room, and they were slightly, put off by my claim that AI could do. The lawyers should not be doing technical writing, but they should be doing the strategic thinking about the claiming.
Exactly.
And the guy disagreed. He says, I'm a patent lawyer, and I disagree with your statement. I mean, how would the AI be able to anticipate future uses of this? And I told him, well, that's your whole value there. You need to tell the AI, okay, look for similar adjacent spaces that we should also consider claiming to cover those adjacent uses. That's the human creativity that the AI cannot duplicate. And so it's a tool. Use it. Right? An example I used was, hey, 30 years ago when the spreadsheet came out, right? Did it obsolete the accountants? No, heck no. It made accountant more valuable because now they're elevating themselves into higher level thinking. Instead of doing the number crunching, now they can start thinking about how you minimize your tax, how you maximize corporate valuation, and a host of other things. So it freed up the accountants to do the strategic thinking. It never got rid of the accountant. So I think it made that lawyer happy that AI was not going to get rid of the lawyers. But I think that it's a tool. All of this is a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, and you just anticipated my next question, which is I like to ask people, what do you foresee the industry looking like if we were to go out, say, 5 years or so? What's going to be the same? What's going to be different? Hearing what you're saying, it's like a lot of these types of more mechanical types of attorney work are going to be overtaken by AI, but it's really where the human strategic thinking and the creativity and the nuance comes in that won't be replaced. Is that?
That's right. And I think you see that same analogy in coding. Guess what?
Yeah.
The coding space used to be very hot for college graduate, but it's kind of cooled down. It's the AI is now being the junior coder, right? So you can think of all these AI. They're filling in as the first year kind of college graduate level, and now you as the user need to use that strategically to figure out, okay, they've offloaded some task, and now it frees me up to think more about where we should be going in the strategy and the direction. So it's simply a tool. To me, it's not a threat, but I think a lot of people look at that as, are they going to, is it going to replace me or not? I don't think that's the problem. I don't think that's the issue to think about. It's about, I told them, that this is what I hear is that between two people, one is AI and the other one is not AI trained. They'll say the one who keeps the job is the one who knows how to use AI. Yeah. So the room laughed. So it resonated with them.
Fantastic. And so I'll turn a little bit more to your specific business now to dive in. Obviously, you have a very unique trajectory with your career and perspective. So what would you say that you do extraordinarily well that sets you apart from others that are in patent and IP?
Because I have the luck of being involved in a company from a startup phase, and it's going through the growth phase that went through the public the IPO and then post public phase, and then I've been lucky enough to repeat that loop a couple of times. And of course, along the way, you find a lot of dead bodies on the road. I mean, the statistics are 9 out of 10 startups fail, right? So you see a lot of you see a few outstanding successes. Most of the company will get acquired. That's an average outcome. And then probably another equal amount die that's just roadkill along the way. So I think for the one that's a roadkill, the way we've retrieved the value is we will basically reacquire the patent portfolio and then try to figure out how to sell it to other companies who might be able to utilize the technology. But now these days in my journey, I wear three hats. The first hat is I'm a patent lawyer at PatentPC. The second hat is I'm a small angel investor at Transformation Ventures, so that's tran.vc. And then the third hat is I guide some of the the startups that I am involved with more intimately. So Power Patent we mentioned, that's a company that I give them my thinking and they execute on that. Recently, I'm involved with a veterinarian AI startup that came out of the alumni of VCA. If you've ever seen the VCA franchise, so these guys were all ex-officers of VCA, and now they want to apply the knowledge into the AI into the veterinarian space. And so that to me is a very interesting journey to be a part of the early stage company that they think about how they apply the AI. How do they deal with the issue of are we just a wrapper company, i.e., if we're just running on top of ChatGPT or GPT, what differentiates us from the generic mainstream LLM, the OpenAI? So you have this very interesting dynamic between they use GPT output, but there is a threat that GPT itself could compete against them because they provide answers on, let's say, health issues with a pet. And of course, with ChatGPT being just so well known, there's a race, and then there's also the question of in order for us to be found inside of ChatGPT, we have to supply them with the information, right? They have to be citing to the new company side. It's called Petsopia, and so it's a very interesting dynamic where your vendor possibly is your competitor, and then that implies what is the IP you have to protect that possibility. So it's a very multifaceted journey, and I kind of enjoy those kind of challenges. So I'm wearing, in short, I'm wearing three hats. I'm a patent lawyer for my existing clients. I'm also a venture investor, and then for a few key companies, I'm a part of their the board and things like that. So I wear multiple hats, but I think in a way that it allows me to have a bigger picture view than just simply I'm a patent lawyer and I'm just focusing on on whatever you send me, and I'll draft the application only on that focus.
Sure. So because you wear multiple hats, I'll kind of narrow this question to PatentPC. So for the lawyering side of it, what stage of growth are you in right now, and what's your goal for the next 12 months?
Sure. We purposely kept PatentPC a small firm because most founders that I work with, they say, "Are you going to do the work with me, or is it going to be farmed out to a young associate?" And so I find that to be a universal theme, that they want that experience, that personal interaction. So we don't aim to scale to be a big law firm. We're happy being a boutique. We're happy being the pioneer in technology. We're happy in having a deep understanding of the various technology that's involved. So, for example, 20 years ago, it was very deep knowledge of the dental technology space. Over time, it grew into chip space. We are involved with. We were one of the big client we have is a three-dimensional chip layer space. So we knew an awful lot about chip processing and memory technology. And then, of course, blockchain technology was the rage about 5 years ago. So we know we know all the Ethereum, how it works, and the various versions of the blockchain technology, and more recently now it's the AI technology, the neural network technology. And it's interesting to take a look at that because I learned about neural network in college in 1985, and back then we were running the AI. It's like I think maybe 1,000 node network on an Intel 386, and it was capable of doing digit like you can give it a digit like this and it'll recognize that. But that's the resolution of it back then. The same technology now, speed forward 25 years or 20 years, is now it's in the trillion parameters, and now it can do a wonderful thing. But essentially, the underlying neural network technology is the same, right? So, but anyway, maybe I'm wandering. But I love the technology, but technology standalone in my mind is not sufficient. I want to marry that into seeing where the business implications of the use of that technology is and how that could be used to amplify the value of the company. So that's a very, very, you can't apply that strategy to a giant company like, let's say, an Intel, because that's just too big. You cannot use that strategy to shift the business model. So I find it more interesting with startups, where if we talk to the founders and then we can share ideas and we say, hey, what if we do this and this? And then I think that model works a little bit better with the mid-size to the smaller kind of organizations where there's a direct interaction. So for that reason, we keep our the PatentPC a boutique. We're not planning on growing it because we like to interact with clients, and we would like to provide them with good insight as to what to move. Once we grow too big, we will lose that dimension of the communication. So for the next few years of PatentPC, I think that we're gonna kind of grow slightly, maybe at best double in size, but still keep that personal touch that's important to us. We want to be able to talk to the founders and understand their concerns, and then give value added advice as to, oh, well, this is where you are. You might want to consider doing A, B, and C to increase your company valuation. So to do that, it requires, that we cannot grow too fast, and because we'll lose that personal touch.
Fantastic. These were such great observations. Really, really valuable. I think there's a lot of people that should be hearing what you're saying here, and making sure that they have that foresight to be seeking out some of these more proactive moves with their IP. Where I always like to end is on a personal, because we've talked about technology in depth, talk about various angles of thinking about protecting your technology, and now I always like to bring it back outside of all the business to the personal why. What is it that's kind of your driving motivation for what you do, gets you out of bed every day?
Yeah, I mean, my wife asked that because she sees I'm constantly, jumping over hoops, right? She says, why don't you just take a break? And I told her it's not work when you enjoy it, And so that's why I get up early in the morning and I sleep late, and that's because the work is interesting, and I'm lucky enough to have people that come to me with interesting things to do. So, for example, the veterinarian AI business. That's something that came out of the blue in October of last year, and it's been a very interesting project. Power Patent, from a conceptual perspective, is beautiful because I don't do the coding, but I guide them, right? And so it's fun and it's interesting. Invisalign was an example that I got lucky with early on, and that kind of, I think, that created a roadmap for me. So I think. From a personal perspective, I want to just keep on doing what I'm doing. It's fun. It's we're creating value to society and to the companies that we work with. We're making, in the Steve Jobs word, a dent to the universe in all of these interesting side ventures. On the patents, if I can help the clients, gain an extra $1 million or $2 million from licensing fees, that's fantastic. I mean, that's reward for the work, is to see that you're able to add value at a high level. I mean, there's a difference between adding value by just cranking the wheels and what do they call that? You're a small cog in the engine. I don't want to be that. I want to be able to shift the trajectory of a company in a way that makes them more important or more successful. And that's why I enjoy what I do. Is I would not want to be a patent lawyer for a giant company where I'm just improving a little cog. I want to be able to shift the direction of a company because of what I do.
Yes, fantastic. And how can people that are interested in learning more or working with you, how can they contact you?
Please visit us at PatentPC.com. It's short for Patent Professional Corporation, but it's PatentPC.com. If you have a great idea and you're seeking venture consideration, visit tram.bc, tram.bc. And if you're interested in using the patent software, you can go to powerpatent.com.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. That was a really a unique and excellent conversation today.
Thank you, Stephen. That's a fantastic, very interesting conversation.
Thanks. Take care.